There is a very specific, um, almost subconscious comfort that we all feel when we walk into a grocery store.
Uh,
Or, when we take our seats in a massive sports stadium, we just kind of assume that the invisible architecture of our safety is fully intact.
right, exactly. We operate on this baseline assumption that the physical environment is, well, highly regulated.
Yeah. Like you grab a jar of baby food off the shelf and you assume it's just peas and carrots. You go to a stadium concert and you assume the air you're breathing is just, air.
And that assumption is basically the foundation of modern civilization. We trust that there are people whose entire job is to keep the bizarre, the toxic, and the dangerous far away from us.
But when you actually look at the hidden architecture of global security today in 2026, you realize that foundation it's shifting beneath our feet. The threats we used to associate exclusively with, like distant battlefields or state-sponsored laboratories, they are quietly migrating.
They really are. They're entering those grocery aisles, our local parks, our corporate break rooms.
I mean, the weapons themselves are fracturing. We are moving away from traditional, highly visible military threats and entering this landscape that is hyperlocal, deeply strange, and just constantly evolving.
Because the barrier to entry for causing localized mass panic has essentially evaporated. I mean, we are witnessing the democratization of technology, shifting crowd psychology, and struggling bureaucratic institutions all colliding at once.
And it creates a highly unpredictable threat environment, which is exactly what we are going to explore today in this deep dive. We are cutting through the daily noise to map out this new world of global CBRN threats.
Chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats.
Exactly. And we are pulling these insights exclusively from the April 2026 issue of CBRNe World Magazine, which is this remarkably detailed publication. It tracks everything from international weapons inspections to the hazmat emergencies happening in our own backyard.
It's a fantastic source because it gives us a really unvarnished look at the data.
It does.
Mm.
And having a firm grasp on this shifting landscape is, honestly, it's the ultimate shortcut to being a truly well-informed citizen. Whether you are planning to attend a massive event like the upcoming World Cup, or you're just trying to make sense of a chaotic news cycle.
Well, let's just jump right into it. The first glaring vulnerability highlighted in the reporting is actually institutional.
Right, the bureaucratic shift.
Yeah, so just months ahead of the massive 2026 FIFA World Cup, the FBI's Weapons of Mass Destruction Directorate, the WMDD, is reportedly being dissolved.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. The plan is to roll it back into general counterterrorism and abolish the specialized assistant director positions. And on top of that, the Department of Homeland Security's counter-WMD office has reportedly lost 50% of its staff and is being fragmented across other departments.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Taking the WMDD out of a highly specialized role and burying it in general counterterrorism right before a massive global event. I mean, that feels like dismantling your dedicated hurricane tracking center right before hurricane season just to save a few dollars in the budget.
That is a perfect analogy because to understand the gravity of that, you have to look at why the WMDD was created in the first place.
Right, after the anthrax letters.
Exactly. Following the Amerithrax incident over 20 years ago, the FBI realized they lacked cohesion. They needed a dedicated, centralized authority to spot gaps, integrate countermeasures, and understand the highly specific, very scientific nuances of chemical and biological threats.
And when you fold that back into a general counterterrorism bucket, the focus inevitably dilutes. I mean, general terror threats are always pressing, right? Budgets are tight.
Yeah, and slowly that specialized, highly technical capability erodes because the people in charge are focused on 100 different things.
So we are optimizing our bureaucracies for the last war, the era of highly networked, large-scale terror groups right at the exact moment the threat has shifted.
Yes. Because the data in the report paints a very different, highly complex reality for 2026. This restructuring is happening exactly as threats are peaking.
And we should clarify here for the listener, we are just reporting the data exactly as it is presented in the source material to illustrate the complexity of this threat landscape. We aren't taking any political sides here.
Right, absolutely not. We're just looking at the impartial math of the current threat landscape, and it is sobering. Politically motivated violence is rising from multiple directions.
Yeah, the sources show right-wing attacks are rising, predominantly targeting individuals. Simultaneously, left-wing attacks are rising, primarily targeting infrastructure and networks.
And attacks against Jewish communities have seen a 270% increase since the start of the Gaza conflict. But The truly terrifying statistic in this report is the nature of the perpetrators themselves.
The unaffiliated actors.
Yes. 88% of those carrying out attacks against people are non-affiliated perpetrators.
Which is, 88% are lone wolves or completely isolated cells. That fundamentally breaks traditional intelligence gathering.
Completely breaks it.
If you are the FBI, you look for signals traffic. You look for money transfers across borders, chatter on dark web forums, or communication between known bad actors.
Yeah.
But a disgruntled individual who is not affiliated with any group, who buys basic chemicals with cash at a hardware store.
They generate absolutely zero signals traffic. They are ghosts in the system until the moment they act.
Wow.
So you have a peaking, highly unpredictable threat landscape driven by unaffiliated actors exactly at the moment when the specialized agency is tasked with spotting those subtle technical precursors are being gutted.
So if 88% of these actors are unaffiliated and basically impossible to track through traditional intelligence, the immediate question becomes, how on earth do you protect massive, concentrated targets?
Right, the practical impact.
Yeah. Let's look at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. We are talking about 3.5 billion global fans tuning in, and millions converging on host cities. The source material brings up the Copa America final at Miami's Hard Rock Stadium.
Oh, the chaos there was unbelievable.
It was. Crowds literally pushed through barricades. The reporting mentions people crawling through the stadium's air conditioning vents just to get inside.
And that highlights a huge issue. Michael Armistead, who is a district chief of special operations for the Nashville Fire Department, he's quoted in the source describing modern crowd management as, quote, trying to hold back a river with a rake.
A river with a rake. That is quite the visual.
It is, because there has been a fundamental psychological shift in crowd temperament lately. Patience is lower, expectations are higher, and tolerance for inconvenience is essentially zero.
So layer the threat of a localized chemical or biological incident over a crowd that is already that physically aggressive and volatile. The potential for a catastrophic stampede is staggering.
Exactly. And the primary goal of a bad actor in that scenario doesn't even need to be massive physical casualties.
Right. The goal is to create outsized fear.
Yes. A single localized incident of a strained gas or powder at a high visibility event disrupts normalcy. It generates enough panic to permanently erode public confidence.
It would cause global attendance to plummet, trigger endless legal and economic fallout.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, are we just building giant, unmanageable fortresses now, or are the tactics actually getting smarter?
They are getting smarter. This is where security tactics have to evolve. If people are crawling through air vents, a giant fortress isn't the solution. The adaptation is in integration.
Go.
Armistead outlines this highly effective strategy called VEG, which stands for Venue Security Event Group. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it intricately aligns existing police and fire resources.
Because historically, if a patrol officer at a stadium found a suspicious package leaking a strange fluid, they'd radio their dispatcher, who calls the fire department dispatcher, who then tries to route a hazmat team.
It was a massive game of telephone. It wasted precious minutes and degraded situational awareness.
But VSEG eliminates those silos, right?
Exactly. It intentionally aligns those resources before the event even starts. It puts the bomb technicians, the hazmat specialists, and the crowd control commanders in the exact same command vehicle.
Oh, wow. So they're looking at the same camera feeds, communicating on the same radio frequency.
Shared situational awareness. It builds an invisible, highly responsive web rather than just a physical wall.
And to make that web effective, frontline teams are being armed with new field-ready tech. The reporting makes it clear we can't rely on presumptive field tests anymore.
No, absolutely not.
Like those little drug testing kits you see on TV where an officer breaks a vial and waits to see if the liquid turns blue. Those tests are notoriously prone to false positives, reacting to harmless legal substances like headache medicine or cleaning supplies.
And a false positive in a stadium of 80,000 tense people could trigger an unnecessary evacuation and a deadly panic. You need absolute certainty.
Which is where this new tech comes in. The report highlights the deployment of equipment like the Griffin G510X GCMS.
The gas chromatograph mass spectrometer.
Yes. Can you explain how that actually works in the field?
Sure. So the underlying mechanism of a GCMS is vital for this new threat landscape. It takes a complex chemical mixture, say an unknown powder found in a stadium bathroom, and it vaporizes it.
Okay.
The gas chromatograph separates the different molecules based on how quickly they travel through a microscopic column. Then the mass spectrometer blasts those separated molecules with electrons, breaking them into fragments, and identifies them by their exact atomic mass.
So it basically creates a highly specific molecular fingerprint for whatever that substance is.
Exactly.
And what's revolutionary is that this isn't some refrigerator-sized machine sitting on a lab bench somewhere. It's a rugged, field-ready device.
Right there in the concourse. It gives law enforcement laboratory-grade identification of complex, explosive, and narcotic mixtures in under 5 minutes.
Under 5 minutes. That is incredible.
Because when every stop or search could uncover something lethal, frontline teams need answers they can trust immediately to act decisively without triggering unnecessary panic.
So we've been looking at this from a macro-level stadiums, massive logistical operations. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh yeah, the micro level.
Yeah. The source material makes it clear that the definition of a weapon of mass destruction is getting smaller, weirder, and much more personal. These aren't just missiles anymore.
The democratization of these threats means you no longer need a state-sponsored lab to cause chaos.
Let's do a quick global rapid fire, some specific startling incidents reported in just a single month, because it illustrates how bizarre the tactics have become. Starting in London.
Right, the drone threat.
Yeah, specialist counter-terror police had to completely lock down Kensington Gardens, right outside the Israeli embassy. The trigger was a terror cell threatening to fly drones carrying radioactive and cancer-causing materials directly into the embassy compound.
And the psychological impact of that threat is the real weapon. The authorities eventually found jars of powder hidden in the park, tested them, and determined they were completely inert and harmless.
But the terror effect was fully achieved anyway.
Absolutely. The park was evacuated, hazmat protocols were initiated, massive resources deployed, public fear spiked. In the modern era, you don't even need a functioning radiological weapon. The credible threat of a poisoned drone is enough to paralyze a major metropolitan neighborhood.
And then, thousands of miles away in the South China Sea, the mechanism of attack shifts to environmental sabotage. The Philippine National Security Council accused Chinese fishermen of systematically dumping cyanide into the waters around the Spratly Islands.
Cyanide fishing is traditionally a destructive method used to stun fish for the aquarium trade. But deploying it on a massive scale in disputed waters is a fascinating and brutal adaptation of chemical warfare.
Because cyanide disrupts the ability of cells to use oxygen, right?
Yeah. When dumped in large quantities over a reef, it doesn't just kill the fish. It suffocates the coral polyps and destroys the entire localized marine ecosystem.
And Manila claims this was deliberate sabotage aimed at wiping out local fish populations to intentionally starve the Philippine troops stationed at Second Thomas Shoal.
Which China denied, dismissing it as a farce. But it highlights a terrifying reality. Basic, widely available industrial chemicals like cyanide can be deployed as an area denial weapon or a localized siege tactic.
All without firing a single conventional shot. It really blurs the line between environmental vandalism and chemical warfare.
It does.
Then we jump to Europe, where the illusion of safety in the grocery aisle was completely shattered. Across Austria, Czechia, and Slovakia, a massive extortion plot targeted the baby food company, HPP.
This one is so disturbing.
It is. Someone leased jars of baby food with rat poison and gradually placed them back onto store shelves.
It is perhaps the most visceral example of targeting the baseline of modern civilization. The extortionist bypassed heavily guarded corporate infrastructure and instead weaponized the public's implicit trust in the retail supply chain.
By targeting infants.
Exactly. Using a common, easily acquired household poison, they held a corporation hostage by the sheer terror of a mother unknowingly buying poisoned food for her child.
But the incident that truly stopped me in my tracks happened in the United States at a Wisconsin lab. And it highlights how artificial intelligence is accelerating this democratization.
Right, the ChatGPT case.
Yeah. A Japanese scientist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison used ChatGPT to calculate the exact lethal dosages of toxic chemicals for humans. He queried the AI for the fatal limits of PFA and trizol, and then used that info to poison his coworker's water bottle and shoes over several weeks.
And the specifics of the chemicals involved are important here. PFA, or paraformaldehyde, is a common tissue fixative. Trizol is a highly toxic reagent used routinely in genetic research.
Well, they aren't exotic nerve agents.
No, they are standard bench reagents found in thousands of university labs globally.
And the motive had nothing to do with radical ideology. He systematically poisoned his colleague simply because he was jealous of a promotion.
Think about that. A disgruntled coworker with a smartphone, access to an AI chatbot, and common laboratory chemicals created a highly targeted terror event.
The AI just removed all the friction.
Exactly. He didn't have to dig through toxicology textbooks or make suspicious search engine queries. The AI acted as an instant, accessible instruction manual for harm. The knowledge of how to weaponize the mundane is now universally accessible.
And it's not just the knowledge of how to make physical weapons that's spreading. The source points out the weaponization of information itself.
Oh, the information war is a huge component.
The reporting highlights Robert Malone, who used an, quote, AI-driven investigation to resurrect a completely debunked hoax claiming that Lyme disease is a U.S. government bioweapon.
It creates this perfect storm of instability. You have AI being utilized as a technical manual for physical poisons and simultaneously acting as an engine for generating sophisticated pseudoscientific disinformation on a mass scale.
And both applications serve the exact same ultimate purpose, right?
Yes, to erode public trust in institutions, scientific reality, and the basic safety of our environment.
So these micro-level, bizarre threats are proliferating. But that doesn't mean the traditional macro-level state threats have disappeared, which brings us to the state-level wildcard, the case of Iran.
Right.
The source material features a really nuanced interview with Christina McAllister, a senior fellow at the Simpson Center, regarding Iran's potential chemical and biological weapons programs. And this is an area full of muddy waters.
Extremely muddy.
So what does this all mean? I mean, we have people screaming that Iran is a clear and present CBW danger, and others saying we need to trust their treaties. How do we avoid another Iraq 2003 rush to judgment?
Well, McAllister parses this beautifully by maintaining a very measured middle ground approach.
Yeah.
She acknowledges that the international community is operating with severely limited public information.
Right.
Iran has made certain declarations to the Chemical and Biological Weapons Conventions. However, they also maintain a demonstrated stockpile of 60% enriched uranium for a supposedly peaceful program.
And if a state actor is being that opaque and pushing the boundaries with nuclear materials, it is entirely logical for intelligence agencies to question what they might be doing with dual-use chemical and biological research.
Exactly. Prudence dictates keeping our eyes wide open. But McAllister stresses a critical point. We must avoid sensationalizing the threat.
Right, because the media loves to obsess over whether a state actor has developed some brand new, undetectable nerve agent that sounds like it came out of a James Bond movie.
People speculate endlessly about complex, bespoke chemical warfare agents being stockpiled. But McAllister points out that a state actor doesn't need a designer nerve agent to cause horrific civilian casualties.
Simple, toxic industrial chemicals are just as deadly.
Heavily produced for legitimate manufacturing and much easier to hide. Look at the chlorine gas deployed so tragically against civilians in Syria. Chlorine is ubiquitous. You can't ban a country from producing it because they need it for water purification and plastics.
So we need a measured risk assessment focused on dual-use industrial realities, not Hollywood-style panic.
Exactly.
But, the most alarming takeaway from the Iran discussion wasn't even about the specific chemicals. It was about a massive looming blind spot in our global security architecture.
The human capital crisis?
Yes. The loss of the highly specialized corps of international inspectors.
This is a huge issue. We are losing the people who actually go into a country and physically verify that a regime has dismantled its weapons programs.
And we aren't talking about analysts sitting in an air-conditioned office looking at satellite feeds. This job requires an incredibly rare hybrid of skills. You need individuals who possess elite, PhD-level scientific understanding of virology or chemical engineering.
Combined with the physical endurance and temperament of a special forces operator.
Right. They have to be willing to deploy globally at a moment's notice. Sleep in tents in austere, highly dangerous, non-permissive environments.
They have to navigate incredibly hostile political situations, stand face-to-face with adversarial military commanders, and forensically verify that a pharmaceutical plant isn't secretly brewing a biological agent.
But following the intense Syrian disarmament missions a decade ago, a lot of the older, highly experienced inspectors simply retired. The burnout rate is massive.
And that institutional knowledge is agonizingly slow to build and incredibly expensive to maintain. You are essentially paying elite scientific experts to wait around for years until a geopolitical crisis occurs.
So the capability is actively eroding. If we reach a sudden diplomatic breakthrough with a state-level actor tomorrow, we might not actually have the specialized boots on the ground required to verify the agreement.
Which is a terrifying thought.
It really brings us completely full circle. We started by examining the FBI, dissolving the WMD Directorate, and losing institutional capability at home, and we end up looking at the exact same decay of human capital on the international inspection stage.
It really shows that the very concept of a CBRN threat has fractured. It is no longer just the exclusive domain of high-level government directorates tracking ballistic missiles.
No, it is a hyper-local reality now. It involves AI, drones, and basic commercial products. It's a drone hovering over a park in London, it's environmental sabotage in the South China Sea, and it is a manipulated supply chain in the grocery aisle.
But here is why the listener should care. Your awareness of this shifting landscape is genuinely your best defense.
Because the primary goal of these threats is to generate fear.
Yes. Whether it's a jar of laced baby food or a radioactive hoax, it is designed to erode your confidence in everyday life. By understanding how these threats operate and how security forces are adapting with tools like VSEG and field-ready spectrometry, you strip away that fear.
You replace panic with informed vigilance.
Exactly. Understanding the mechanics of the threat is the antidote to the terror it seeks to create.
I love that. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. We talked about the Japanese scientist who used ChatGPT as an instruction manual to calculate the precise lethal dose of a poison to slip into his colleague's water bottle.
Right.
In that case, the AI was merely a tool reacting to his malicious prompts. But as these generative models become exponentially more advanced, and as they're increasingly integrated into the physical world through robotics and autonomous lab systems.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
How long is it until the AI is no longer just the instruction manual, but becomes the autonomous architect of a localized CBRN threat? When the invisible architecture of our safety isn't just threatened by a person using a machine, but by the machine acting on its own logic.
That is absolutely the defining security question of the next decade.
Keep your eyes open, and we'll see you on the next Deep Dive.